Live. The news you count on. NBC2 News at Noon.
A second healthcare worker at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital has preliminarily tested positive for Ebola.
And we've just learned that second healthcare worker is a nurse. Her family is telling Dallas TV stations her name is Amber Vincent. She helped treat the Ebola patient in Dallas, and she's not only tested positive for the virus, but we're also just learning that she took a flight before she came down with symptoms. So now officials are alerting the 132 passengers who are on Frontier Airlines Flight 1143 from Cleveland to Dallas-Fort Worth on Monday. The CDC now has a rapid response team in Dallas to handle the situation, while 75 other healthcare workers who had contact with Thomas Eric Duncan, the man who died from Ebola last week, are being monitored for symptoms. Now, in light of this new information, President Obama is canceling his plans today. They were campaign plans. His trips are put off for now as he holds a meeting with the cabinet on the latest on the Ebola crisis. Back here in Southwest Florida, in the last hour, the reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the death of this little 5-year-old boy, Andrew Faust, has jumped to $25,000. These are brand new pictures of little Andrew. Police say they've received dozens of tips, but a lot of that is simply hearsay. Right now, they need someone to come forward who saw the shooting Monday night. Investigators have wrapped up at the Fort Myers crime scene, but they say if they get a tip with solid information, they will be right back out there. Cape Coral police arrest a suspect in last week's Iberia bank robbery. Investigators pieced together witness accounts and Crime Stopper tips to find Jose Benitez. They say this is the guy, the 45-year-old. He's facing numerous charges, including grand theft and robbery with a firearm. How will you vote in the gubernatorial race? It's just a few weeks away. Tonight, only NBC2 can help you get familiarized with the two candidates hoping to represent you. We're just hours away from the much anticipated debate between Governor Rick Scott and former Governor Charlie Crist. And again, you can only watch it on NBC2. Recent polls show the race is going to be very close. Governor Scott and Crist disagree on most of the major issues we're facing: gay marriage, health care, medical marijuana. Tonight's debate starts at 7 o'clock. It's going to be at Broward College. We'll also have a recap tonight on NBC2 News at 11 and also tomorrow morning on NBC2 News Today. Now, one person you will not see at that debate is Libertarian Adrian Wiley. A federal judge rejected arguments yesterday that he should be included. Organizers only allowed candidates to participate if they received at least 15% of the vote in a September poll, and Wiley only had 13%. Meanwhile, a brand new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll in the upcoming November elections finds 46% of likely voters prefer a Republican-controlled Congress. It found 44% want Democrats in charge, and a whopping 65% of voters believe the country is headed in the wrong direction. By the way, that's the highest percentage the poll has ever measured before a midterm election, and only 28% think the U.S. economy will improve over the next 12 months. Now, another big decision you can make at the polls: whether to approve medical marijuana. The city of Naples just voted to approve and move forward with a controversial amendment to ban medical marijuana sale within city limits if use is approved in Florida. Residents have been back and forth with council members for weeks about this issue. Right now, the plan would be to limit the sale of it and dispensaries to a special medical district. It would be on land owned by Naples Community Hospital, but a representative from that hospital already told us he doesn't want medical marijuana sold near hospitals. Well, as you heard in our top stories just a few minutes ago, a second healthcare worker, nurse at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas, has contracted Ebola, testing positive. And now the potential spread of the virus among healthcare workers, well, it is a real concern for the nurses union, which says not enough is being done to protect those caring for Ebola patients. NBC's Cheryl Hurd has that report.
Media, and there's the threat of retaliation, and it's real.
That's why National Nurses United Executive Director Roseanne DeMauro says she will not reveal the identity of Dallas nurses who are speaking out. Instead, union members read their statement that included disturbing details about what happened when Ebola patient Thomas Duncan was at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital.
They said Mr. Duncan was left for several hours, not in isolation, in an area where other patients were present.
Complaint after complaint was read during the press conference. Dallas nurses telling union officials that they didn't have the proper protective clothing to deal with contagious patients. They say they improvised, leaving body parts exposed. That may have been how nurse Nina Pham was infected with Ebola while treating Duncan.
Initially, what was said is that these nurses weren't following protocol. What the nurses are saying, there were no protocols.
Dallas hospital officials responding quickly to the press conference, releasing this statement to NBC Bay Area News. It says, in part, we have numerous measures in place to provide a safe working environment, including mandatory annual training and 24/7 hotline and other mechanisms that allow for anonymous reporting. What's happening in Dallas is sparking serious conversations about hospital safety in the Bay Area.
Come on, are the boots made of rubber?
Nurses in the East Bay are looking at a training video to prepare for a possible case of Ebola.
We want all of our staff to be comfortable with putting on those the isolation gowns and everything else that they're going to use and taking it off properly, because we know that is probably the biggest concern.
California Nurses Association President Deborah Berger says she's concerned that hospitals are not ready for Ebola.
Now to the latest on the fight against ISIS militants. This week, the U.S. is concentrating nearly all its airstrikes on Kobani. The Syrian town is barely holding off attacks. Defense ministers meeting with President Obama agreed defeating the Islamic State will not be easy. And new poll numbers show more Americans now say they believe U.S. military action against ISIS should include American combat troops on the ground. In the NBC Wall Street Journal poll, 41% of respondents believe both troops on the ground and airstrikes are necessary for the mission against ISIS, versus 35% who think it should be restricted to airstrikes. Another 15% say no military action should be taken. All new on NBC2 News at noon, we're learning 2 inmates have died in the past week at a women's prison near Ocala. Reports show 80-year-old Jane Taylor died Monday, and 48-year-old Mitchell Tierney passed away at Lowell Correctional Institution. Now, in addition, on October 1st, inmate Latanda Ellington died at the facility, and now the Department of Corrections says the medical examiner will determine the causes of death. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement is also investigating. Collier County will not force sex offenders to move further away from schools or playgrounds. Right now, the law says they cannot be within 1,000 feet. But lawmakers were considering a plan to expand that buffer zone to 2,000 feet. Officials believe forcing sex offenders to move could actually be more dangerous to the community.
Expanding the buffer zones, you would actually be pushing some offenders into a transient status or maybe absconding, and then you lose track of where they're at and what they're doing.
Right now, there are about 250 sex offenders living in Collier County. Looking overseas, South African athlete Oscar Pistorius returned to court today for the 3rd day of his sentencing hearing. He's been convicted of killing his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp. NBC's Rohit Katrun reports from Pretoria as the court today heard from a member of Steenkamp's family.
Another day of powerful and emotional testimony of the trial of Oscar Pistorius.
It's terrible. I'd say it's ruined our whole family.
As we heard for the first time from a member of the family of Riva Steenkamp. This evidence came from Kim Martin, a cousin of Riva Steenkamp, who broke down in tears, forcing a brief adjournment when she described the moment that she heard that Oscar Pistorius had shot Riva Steenkamp. It came through a radio program.
Then he said Oscar Pistorius, and I remember the minute he said his name, I jumped up in the front seat. And I froze, and the next words were, allegedly shot his girlfriend.
She then described meeting Oscar Pistorius. She said he was shy. She then asked her cousin Riva Steenkamp whether she was happy. She responded by saying she'd answer the question at a later time, but that time never came, the conversation never happened, and Ms. Martin says she still regrets not having that conversation. There'll be more evidence from prosecution witnesses tomorrow, and then later in the week or perhaps in the coming days, the judge has indicated that she'll be able to announce what sentence Oscar Pistorius must serve. Rohit Katru, NBC News, Pretoria.
Back here in Florida, as the University of Florida works towards its goal of becoming a top 10 public university, the school is naming its next president. Today, the university chose Cornell University's provost to be its 12th president. W. Kent Fuchs will replace Bernie Machen, who is retiring at the end of the year. Machen has led the school since 2014. Fishermen anticipate a good stone crab claw season as it opens up. After 2 years of pretty puny harvest, the forecast for this year's stone crab catch is cautiously upbeat, though prices likely will remain high. But crabbers won't really know until they start hauling up traps today. The last 2 years, the state's total catch was a disappointing 2.6 million pounds of claws, a historic average year around 3 million. Get this, that cold front coming that Jason Dunning's been talking about, well, that might be just the thing to get those crabs up and ambling into traps. Stone crab season closes May 16th. Now, also happening today, Comcast is hiring technicians in Southwest Florida. A job fair is starting in just a few hours. It's from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Career Resource Center, on Horseshoe Drive in Naples. But you do need to fill out an online application first. You can do that on NBC-2.com. Just click News Links.
Well, I think a lot of us will like the changes that are coming to Southwest Florida as this cool front moves in today. We saw a lot of rain through the morning hours. Looks pretty quiet out there right now. We'll see how the afternoon plays out and preview some of those cooler temperatures and that less humid weather coming to Southwest Florida. That's all ahead in your First Alert forecast. Stay with us.